Is someone being disingenuous about your mental health, their mental health, or both? Let's talk about it. We've got the hopeless card here, loss, depression, and self-deletion, which this is a follow-up to the shapeshifter reading because I wanted to know what the narrative was that was being constructed in that reading, like try and get an indication of what that might be. And then this card came out. And of course, I don't want to assume that someone is not being honest about something like this, something that's going on with them, but the support card came out, and the secret card was right after that. So the vibe that I'm getting from that is some sort of false narrative of being more supportive than they actually are. Because we were talking about false amends a lot in that last reading, and a lot to do with perception management. And something that can come along with that is this facade about supporting you when you were going through a rough time. And I got the Witch's runes out again since they seem to be pretty helpful in that last reading, and the Scythe card, or Scythe rune, came out. And I read that like the Death card, transformation, change, but big change. And so maybe the end that this is getting at is trying to facilitate some sort of change or affect some sort of change. I don't know if you're going through some sort of legal battle with this person. That's kind of the example that's coming to mind. Like, no, I was a supportive spouse and I was always there for them, and when they were depressed, down on their luck, I was there when really they were the one kicking you while you were down. So we'll start getting some cards out and dig a little bit further into this dynamic. And of course, yourself, anybody you know, struggling with mental health issues, please seek the appropriate support. Therapy, support groups, there's all sorts of different resources out there when things are going on. But what else about hopeless and support, secret support? And I thought I'd get out the Storytellers Tarot. It seemed appropriate for this, constructing a narrative. And I had actually meant to do this reading last night, but sometimes meditation leads to sleeping. And it actually worked out pretty well because there was a new episode of the Women of Impact podcast that I hadn't caught yet, with Dr. Peter Salerno, which I don't know if I'm pronouncing correctly, but it was about female narcissism. And it's a really interesting episode because it kind of gets into those more covert aggressive is the term that he used, and not passive aggressive, because like you said, there's nothing passive about a lot that's being done in these dynamics. It was a really interesting breakdown. But we've got Four of Spikes and the Hermit, both in reverse. And spikes are swords in this deck. I don't think I've seen this Hermit card before, but it looks like a little fox spirit, maybe? It's a little hard even for me to see. I don't know if the camera's going to pick that up, but it looks like they're in a temple. But these two cards in reverse, because the Four of Spikes or Swords is the Rest card. So not getting rest, isolation. That's like being prescribed rest or a down period after surgery or something, and then not sitting down, like not participating in the bed rest, something like that. But I almost get this sense, just from the way that this is coming out, that you or someone you know was actually trying to achieve that rest, but there was somebody in the household, we'll just go with the spouse example, not allowing that to occur. Like being unable to go to the grocery store without calling 5 times. Like, figure it out. Be grown and figure it out. Most stores have an app by now, or do an online order. Like, do something. Just sort it out. Be the adult. And that's kind of something that happens in these dynamics where the perception is the important thing and not the actual. This whole like weaponized incompetence deal where like in the office for whatever job they have, of course they sold themselves up during the interview, qualified for days, for this position, but then at home can't handle basic tasks like taking out the trash without being asked, or doing the whole like, well, if you need me to do something, just tell me what it is you need done. I need you to use your eyeballs like an adult and look around you and take initiative. Like that's what needs to happen, not exhausting the person that is in need of support by expecting them to be a project manager for your life. I know that's a common complaint of, hear it mostly from women, but it definitely happens in other dynamics for sure. But I thought the dice roll that I got was pretty interesting too. Neptune, Cancer, and the third house. Because Neptune is the planet of illusion. And Cancer, a very emotional sign, even more emotional than Pisces, in its archetype. And the third house being communication and the mind. So from all that, it's like intelligent, emotional illusions. Like casting a very convincing, pulling at the heartstrings sort of narrative. And we got 3 of spikes in reverse and 6 of scepters in reverse. Looks like Capricorn. And then 3 of swords or spikes in reverse. That's like the relief of heartache. But there's also another interpretation of that card. It's kind of hard to tell from this picture in this deck, but it's normally the heart with the 3 swords going into it. And you can also think of that as mind over heart, being more logical than emotional. So in the reverse, it'd be the opposite. So this narrative was constructed to play on emotions, to bypass the logical mind, because they're losing something, maybe a legal battle, maybe it's the never-ending divorce, which is a theme that has come up a few times. Because 6 of Wands, that's like public victory, the parading of the champion. And Capricorn being that Saturnian sign of karma, it's like they're trying to avoid their lesson through this manipulation, through this narrative. And it does build on that other, the theme of the examples that I was bringing up in the last reading of going through the motions. And yes, you did the amends step, but in like a maliciously compliant way. You just checked the box, didn't actually get to the spirit of the request. But what do we need to know? How about the losing, or at least whether perceived or actual? Because I don't know if this is an actual legal battle, divorce, something like that, that is underway, or there's an anticipation of that. So what about this lost competition? Recharge. Breathe, let go, clear your mind. Or you, or whomever this person is losing by, getting better. Maybe. Like starting to come out on the other side of the worst of it. Maybe. Breathe, let go, clear your mind. Nope. Well, we'll see. Revenge. I'm looking to damage you in retaliation for perceived wrongs. Recharge and revenge. Oh, and the letters are kind of doubling up. That's interesting. And they're very juxtaposed in like the meaning of the words. It's like somebody wants to take revenge on you for getting better? That's weird. Maybe they feel slighted by your progress. It's some sort of, like it highlights in them what they feel unable to accomplish, which if they're not applying the effort, yeah, of course they're not going to be able to accomplish it. If you expend all your energy on manipulation and you don't actually do the thing, then you run a great risk of that ruse not being able to be maintained. And there's the eye. The all-seeing eye. The eye of providence. It said perceived wrongs. Or are they losing because this narrative is starting to come to the surface? Which I think was a theme in that last reading too. It's like, wait, if you're doing so bad, hopeless, lost, depressed, all these things, why do you look fine? Like these, like one of these things is not like the other. It's really not adding up. And I don't know if this narrative is like, is there some sort of hope? Some twisted hope that if they say it enough, it'll become true? Like something will line up. You'll go back to your old ways. Something like that. Tell me more. I mean, that recharge card, maybe that's the rest that was not being allowed to be had, potentially while you were together. So that could be another layer of this. Maybe you are living in separation while going through this divorce. And now that you're apart, now you've got some breathing room because you don't have an adult child to take care of. See the candle flickering quite a bit. And so now the rest that you were prescribed for whatever reason, recommended, prescribed, whatever, you can actually accomplish it. Because say you're splitting days with the kids, if that's applicable. Now you can actually rest. Even if it's not maybe as much rest as you truly need in the wake of all of this, it's still something, you know? And like what I kind of opened with, meditation accidentally leading to sleep. You know, something like that. Maybe you're finally getting the chance to collapse, as it were. Ooh, there we go. And sometimes that's needed. If your body chooses rest over letting you meditate, that is what you needed. We've got Judgment, the Moon in reverse, Secrets Revealed, Eight of Coins in reverse, Strength in reverse, and the World in reverse. So I feel like these first two are kind of a pair. Judgment and the Moon in reverse. There will be judgment for secrets revealed. And it's not like you're going around town saying these things, or at least that's the impression that I have here, because that wouldn't be very recharging. But it's more like as things proceed, maybe as things don't add up within this narrative, the secrets will become apparent. I mean, look how gnarly that card is. The silhouette of the woman or the girl in the moon, and then the wolf about to eat it. Someone that had some kind of veracity for your suffering, which is gross. But that happens with those antagonistic personalities. And someone that is truly incapable of facing accountability, of facing the truth of their own actions, of... And this, I think, might be why that episode felt so serendipitous, because it really talks about intentional cruelty. And that is something I actually find refreshing to hear out of a clinician's mouth, that we're not making excuses for cruelty, that we're saying like, no, this is real. This is an actual thing, and it's not just a misguided, misunderstood soul. This is someone making deliberate choices to harm another person, and they need to be viewed as such. And if you've ever been around one or many of these personality types, you know the lengths to which they will go to avoid that truth from coming to the surface. So, with these three in reverse, Eight of Coins, Strength, and the World. I mean, Eight of Coins is the artisan. That's like working very hard for nothing. And then all your strength, all your resources completely wiped out. And they couldn't get the outcome, the end that they wanted. It's a lot of energy expended at this. But it's all about that perception management. And people really don't realize what goes on behind closed doors. And the first thing I think that comes to mind is physical violence. But sometimes it's neglect. Sometimes it's someone just watching you suffer. And that was a big reason I estranged myself from my whole family. Because not only was I mainly dealing with one person, with my parent, who has that communal perception and has a perception of always doing the right thing and whatnot, because of how things are handled when someone's looking. Meanwhile, as soon as that door closes, I was in the midst of having a medical and mental health crisis, and that parent was just sitting on the couch, like pointing at what needed to be done. Like, how about you help? How about you actually get up and do something instead of giving the perception of doing something? And meanwhile, the backdrop to all that was that the rest of my family knew what kind of state I was in. They weren't following up. They weren't asking me how I was doing, anything like that. I think at one point I was even just removed from the family group chat. I have no idea when that happened, but it's just kind of like we unceremoniously departed from each other's lives. And I guess I've reached the point where I'm like, you know what? I'm okay being the bad guy. I'm okay being the nut job. I'm okay being the villain, because these are not people I want to fit in with. These are not people I care what they think about me. Have your perceptions. I am okay being the big bad monster, the big bad wolf in your story. That's fine. And maybe that's the point you hit too. Because she's looking out into the sunset. And maybe you've gone off to a beach somewhere, just to get away from things and like, you know what? I guess I am the bad one. That's fine. Now, if you're in the midst of a legal case, it's disturbing how the legal system can become the strong arm of these manipulators. And what really concerns me, and I'm just making an assumption, biased opinion, all those things, but how many people operating in the legal system are also doing these things? You know, they get these high-powered positions in society and whatnot, but then they act like a tyrant at home. That same tyrant at home didn't stop being a tyrant when they came into the office. They just put their mask on. It's kind of like what we're seeing with Tennessee Republicans, with the gutting of the black voice in the vote. I saw a clip of like gleeful smiles. That's the face of cruelty. It's not like Hitchcock, the psycho, coming through the shower. Like, yes, that is a visage of it. No, it's gleeful leaders that smile in the face of doing something incredibly racist. And they think it's okay. They not only think it's okay, but they're enjoying oppressing other people. So I think we're starting to see the pickle, to downplay it a lot, that we've gotten ourselves into by compartmentalizing people's aspects of their personality and not looking at them through a holistic lens, like through the lens of the whole person. Because anybody who's like an authoritarian tyrant, where it cannot be seen, they'll still do that wherever they have power. There are a lot of people that only have power at work. So what? Actually, I want to stick on that theme. What do we need to know about the power dynamic here? Because I feel like there's a real consequential battle happening, like whether it's legal or custody, what have you. So what about the power dynamic? Maybe? There we go. Salty. Someone's salty, but they're trying to not be. Ah. Salty and shattered. Bitter, angry, petty, broken, nightmares, failures. And they both came out reversed. And that kind of looks like a moon too. Like a moon and a star. A little bit. But I feel like this is what's trying to be hidden. Salty and shattered. That whole like, no, I'm fine. It's not bothering me. Like, it was a mutual breakup. Meanwhile, no, it wasn't. And their pride and ego will not allow that to be admitted. But then it turns into a battle where the kid gets pulled in the middle. And I just had a thought. Resist the urge to over-explain as you go through this. Because not everybody that you come into contact with in these situations is going to be an authoritarian tyrant. I think the probability is high, unfortunately, as the clock chimes. But what came to mind was like the one and only instance of a family member who wasn't that one parent checking on me. And I almost had a urge to clarify, like, oh, well, I was checked on once. Like, once? Once? And this is family? Quote unquote? No. That's like I'm good with whatever y'all think of me. Just across the board, think what you want. And that might come across cold to some people, that you're not bowing down or whatever to fully explain every single detail of the situation. But from where I'm sitting, you not over explaining yourself is standing on business. That's you humanizing yourself in a situation that was intended to dehumanize you and chop you up into your parts and not see you as a whole person. So what about salty and shattered? Oop. Got like 3. I'm just taking the bottom one. Well, no, I'll take them all, actually. Get a little more in-depth on the behind the scenes. So we have lust and sabotage in reverse. And then regret. So maybe this is just more of the true feelings. Sabotage is an action, though, not a feeling. Maybe they tried to, like, well, we were together for so long and this and that. Maybe this was like an avenue, a strategy that like realizing they're losing, tried the like to seduce you back or something, but it didn't work. And now they're living in regret. Because maybe once you got some space, once you got some separation, then the fog, like the trauma fog, started to clear a bit. And then you can finally see, like, oh man, this was worse than I thought it was. That's kind of the painful, a lot of the painful realizations that you go through in therapy, support groups, and what have you, that healing journey of, especially when you thought something was normal, and then you get hit with the awkward silence from the support group that like, oh, that's not normal. Sorry to break it to you. Let's get another rune. There's a song trying to emerge from the depths. It's like After the Burial. Lost in the Static, I think is what it's called. It's a heavy song. I think that's actually on my most recent playlist, the Monsters one that I put on the channel. Because I remember when I was going through domestic violence, on those days that I would just like call into work, and then I couldn't go home, so I would just like go to a parking lot and cry and smoke cigarettes, and but my mind was just shattered. It was like static, and I just remember that feeling and being on such autopilot that it was like those few hours that I would spend in the parking lot until it was safe to go home, until his shift started, so I could actually get some sleep instead of being kept awake. But those few hours of that pressure release valve, that was such a lifeline to me, and it looked, probably would look insane from the outside looking in, just me like crying for hours in my car in some empty parking lot, just chain smoking, whatnot, and doing it fairly often. But you just kind of do what you got to do to get through when you're in that situation. And we've got wind, flight. And it's interesting, these two runes, because there's flight and waves. So it's like air and water, but in motion. Actually, that kinetic energy is not potential, it's been actualized. And I thought that was pretty interesting, just in the scheme of things, that those elemental pieces have motion attached to them. Could be the ocean breeze over that sunset. Wherever you happen to find yourself. There's a lot of nice sunsets out there. But tell me more about this power dynamic, because I'm getting, it just didn't work. They weren't able to reclaim power the way that was intended. Nope. So what happened? Why weren't they able to? There we go. That was awkward and weird. So we've got Six of Hearts in reverse, Queen of Scepters in reverse, and Queen of Coins upright. So Six of Cups, Queen of Wands, Queen of Pentacles. That's the soulmate card. Soulmate, nostalgia. They weren't able to play that off that like, oh, we're soulmates. Like, pretty sure my soulmate isn't who leaves me in dire need of like trauma therapy. And not somebody who would try to manipulate an outcome. And Queen of Scepters, because that's like the eat, drink, and be merry queen. I almost get like they can't or couldn't put down their vices. Like that was one thing maybe that led to the initial split. It was based in some sort of vice, like a substance or cheating or something like that. Maybe even overspending. And you'd get the words for like, yes, I'm going to change, I'll do better next time. And then when next time came, they just do the exact same thing. So then we've got the Phoenix here on the Queen of Coins. That's like you rising into your independence out of this. I feel like that's what's got somebody salty and in regret and, what was this, shattered? But I feel like it's not because they lost their soulmate. It's because they lost their like meal ticket or something, or their like perception shield. Like, I don't know if they thought they could do better and maybe they're not realizing. Like, it's kind of like some of my favorite Am I the A-hole stories on Reddit are when a man will try to convince his wife into an open relationship and then she goes for it, but then she's the only one getting dates, and so then he tries to roll it back and whatnot, and then lo and behold, through comments and whatnot, you find out he already had someone in mind and it didn't work. Like, he already had a target picked. There goes that clock. So maybe it's something like that, where it's like, you know what, if you think you can go get better, go get it. The door locks will be changed when you get back. And then they were. Maybe they didn't think that you would actually follow through. Maybe that's not something you classically did in the past. But you reached enough of a point of awareness, of maybe recharge, of something to be like, you know what? Be gone. If that's the way you want to treat me, I don't want you here. But when you're dealing with somebody who's like antagonistic, you got to get them out the door so that you can actually secure your space and whatnot. So where do I want to go with this? So what does this mean for you? Now that all of this narrative is breaking down, strategies breaking down, it seems like whomever you're dealing with, they are out of moves. So what's the checkmate here? Because it's like we're dancing around, like moving between like check to check to check to check. Eventually there has to be a checkmate. Stagnant. Stuck, dead end, frozen. Gonna need another one. There was nothing hiding behind that. What about stagnant? because that's just kind of what I described, like going through the check to check to check. Or maybe you're just parked at a stalemate and like, okay, we've been waiting for you for 6 months to make your move. Make it, or I'm going to flip the board. What about stagnant? Quiet. 4-way. You want to know what the move is? I want to know what the move is. Find out what the move is. Masked. It's in reverse. Hiding, concealing, deception. So the mask is coming off. And thrills. Continuous cycles, bad decisions, and addictions. Yeah, just the mask of them is falling off. They can't hide that the addictions have continued, have remained being partook in. So what's the intention behind this? Or are they remaining stagnant to continue engaging in thrills? Because when I got divorced, mine was pretty simple. So everything was in my name. So I know it can get like infinitely more complicated when you're dealing with kids and assets and things like that. But is there going to be some sort of major money transfer? Like, did they acquire something that isn't theirs? I don't know, through like a line of credit or second mortgage on the home that they should have never taken out. I don't know, something. Oh, that just plunked right out. Apathetic. I prefer to remain focused on my own life right now, but it was in reverse. Ah, dragging this out because then they'll actually have to face themselves. Then the silence will creep in. The keeping things going and dragging them out and all that, it keeps the drama stirring, and therefore they don't have to concentrate on actually facing substance issues, maybe whatever is going on that's causing hypersexuality and things like that. Or maybe they're poly and they're not wanting to admit that for some reason. I mean, I know it's not the popular choice, I guess, but it's like, be true to who you are so that you can find someone you're compatible with. Oh, maybe in the closet too, because this was reversed. This is the masculine rune, and it looks like the one for Tyr, Tyr, the Norse god who sacrificed his arm to contain Fenrir. But I've been speaking of this in like a heteronormative sense. And it does kind of follow that thread. 'Cause a few readings ago I talked about lavender marriages, but only one person knew it was lavender. And it kind of follows that theme of like they want to be poly, but really it was doing something shady. Like it's just, there's some sort of avoidance here. And take the time you need to work through your own stuff. It's the when it starts encroaching on someone else's life and you're not being honest with them, you're not being real about where you are in your own discovery in such a way that not only hurts the relationship, but could be exposing them to health issues. Because if they think they're in a monogamous relationship, they may not be asking the other person to be wearing protection. And it's all about honesty. Like, for some reason, I think people will get really judgy about people who are poly. And like, oh, it's just like a free pass for cheating. No, it takes even more like self-awareness and communication than it would for a monogamous relationship. And to me, sounds like kind of a nightmare. Sounds a little people-y for me. It just, that's the introvert in me. I'm like, oh, one person is enough. That's pretty much all my brain can handle. I just can't have the, like, attached at the hip dynamic. Like, I need a very independent dynamic myself, just because, like, living with PTSD and all those things, when I need alone time, I need it now, because I'm not about to increase my risk of having a seizure and things like that because someone can't deal with me canceling plans last minute, even if they were important plans, you know? That's just one of those things, like, you gotta be honest about your situation so that not only you can find someone who truly cares about you for you, but understands the challenges of your situation, both for yourself and others. Because health challenges do be challenging. It's just a reality of a thing. And as much as it would hurt to be rejected for PTSD, for seizures, for anything that was outside of my control, I would much prefer that sooner rather than later. To find out, like, I was supposed to be able to count on this person and then they aren't there when I need them, you know? Like when you get prescribed rest and it's like no, you need to rest now. No, no negotiations on that. Otherwise, your body will force you to rest in remarkably unpleasant ways. The Wheel of Fortune. And in reverse. Oh, and it's Norse, too. We were just talking about Norse. This is Jormungandr, the world serpent, in the form of an Ouroboros. But this is bad luck. Or this could be going from the top of the wheel to the bottom. Maybe somebody leaving their north node and going into their south node, or at least that's how it feels, when truly they were actually in their south node the whole time. That's where they were operating from the shadow. And I feel like holding this at bay, it just, you're trying to keep that wheel from turning. Like, they wanted it to turn in their favor, yeah. But now it's turning the other direction. No, we gotta stop it. This isn't how things were supposed to go. You don't get to decide that when you start harming people. There are consequences for those things. And I definitely don't agree with any sort of like outing people. Like, people should be able to come out according to their own time, their own acceptance of self and things like that. And if you're lying to people, if you're cheating on somebody and you get caught, I don't know, the expectation of privacy suddenly becomes less reasonable. Because they weren't considerate of other people, and now you're expecting consideration? I'm one of those people that respect should be given freely until given a reason to withdraw it. And some people give that really fast. It's remarkable how quickly that can happen. It's trust that needs to be earned. I've run across a few people in my life that feel like respect needs to be earned. No. I very much disagree with that. It's like, who are you, ruler of the universe? Page of Scepters, Page of Wands. And that looks like Chiron, maybe. The centaur. Could be Chiron, could be Sagittarius. The archer. I mean, if it's Chiron, the wounded healer, just unable to heal what they've done. And if it's Sagittarius, the sage, they're not learning from what they've done. And those would be the real, like, root causes of the wheel being upside down, being reversed, is not heeding the lessons of your shadow, not actually trying to explore those wounds and understanding what is it that causes me to drink or causes me to cheat or steal or lie or whatnot. And you, as the person who was harmed, you don't owe them empathy. You don't owe them compassion. I think if that can be achieved, it can be very healing for you. If it's not rushed, if we don't get there too soon and we're not doing that at the expense of yourself, you know, like when people say like, oh, you must forgive them. You don't have to do that. Forgiveness is not required for healing. But it's more, I guess, a hope that people who are dealing with things like this find those spaces for compassion and don't expect that to come from the people that they harmed. That takes a great deal of emotional maturity that may or may not happen in this lifetime. It all depends on the person. The vehicle, the chariot. Yeah, limited movement, because it's in reverse. They might not be able to get to that karmic lesson, to where they get to their north node, to where the wheel turns itself right. And that's not your burden to take on. Everybody has their own lessons to learn. They've made their own mistakes. These weren't your mistakes. There might be some guilt tripping as part of this. But if you've reached that point of I'm okay being the villain. I feel like guilt tripping would be a lot more challenging to be effective on you. So I think overall, creating some distance between this, because this could be a massive crash out. You know, them losing whatever differences this represents, divorce, custody, so forth. Whatever that situation is, it is not your responsibility to field the crash out. Now, I did mention very early on in the reading, if somebody's struggling to seek support and things like that, you might be put in a position, I don't know, where facilitating them to support, that sort of thing happens in these situations. But if you're concerned about that, like a big dramatic crash out, know what the resources are before something like that occurs. Even if you want to know what that is to offer them genuine support, you know, not be prepared for them to be manipulative, but know what the, like where the crisis centers are, what the crisis line is, 988. I think that's a big national one. You could have one locally that might be different. I don't know. Because the 988 is for the states. But if they have a therapist, if you've got their number, something like that, if they've got a sponsor, I don't know, but it's almost like a safety plan for yourself of someone to pass the baton to, so that you don't have to figure that out in the moment while somebody is in a state, and you already have that there, and that can really help you stay calm in those moments. Because especially if this is, you know, the parent to your child, whatnot, it is an opportunity to be that example to them. I'll take both. There's only two. To be that example to them of how to handle not only a difficult situation, but a difficult situation with someone who hasn't treated you very well. We've got Death of Peace of Mind, Bad Omens. It's a heavy song. And Fearless, President. Actually, those seem pretty on the nose. Both of those, as the clock chimes in, in agreement. But Death of Peace of Mind, that is, it is talking about relationships. I get a lot of PTSD vibes from that love is the death of peace of mind. And Fearless, they're a fairly newer band, President. That is kind of about perception too, about wanting to be fearless, but then struggling with that inner turmoil. So a couple of good songs, I think, to maybe catalyze, alchemize some of this energy. So some music, get your rest, and hold those boundaries, especially for not only you, but if you've got any dependents in the mix that might need to be shielded from a crash out, from somebody not getting their way. Music can give you a nice break to refuel you, at least a little bit. But overall, I hope this helps. I hope this resonates, and if it doesn't, I hope the next one does. Thank you so much.